So I'm extremely excited to hear from Roy Milner, who's this gentleman right here, this handsome man. There he is.
Should I lay down or sit up?
So Roy is, what was your title? The Chief Fermentation Officer of Blackberry Farm. And I don't know if you guys have had Blackberry Farm yet. They have been stealing awards from everyone else, like myself, at GABF and World Beer Cup for their amazingly clean Belgian-inspired Saison. And again, I'm not going to say a whole lot more than that. These guys are incredible. I'm excited for you guys to try their beers, and I'm excited to hear what Roy has to say. And Marco, take it away, man.
I'm excited too.
That title really pisses off our real CFO. That's why I keep it.
I'm incredibly excited too. I mean, since Blackberry Farms started putting beer out, I've been just a huge fan of everything about the brewery. And you can actually check the website for a more in-depth conversation with Blackberry Farms. I think I talked to John.
Yeah, John is our beer traffic controller.
Beer traffic controller. So I talked about for about an hour and a half about what they were doing at that point in time. Just a beautiful brewery. There's so much going on at the brewery. It's not just the brewery though. Blackberry Farms is a whole thing amongst itself, right? I mean, there's.
Yeah, I hope that at least someone's been there before. If you haven't, we're in the foothills of the Smoky Mountain National Park, and we're on 9,200 acres. So it's a small little hamlet, and primarily, I think culinary is what we do best. The farm's been there for 40 years, and wine and culinary is what we're known for, and the brewery is the newest incarnation of the farm's expression. So the brewery opened in 2011, and we've just tried to quietly integrate that into what we do as an overall farm.
If so, that's what I love about it, right? If for anybody who's seen craft beer interviews before, I love when people marry beer and food. I think it's just something that's going to drive craft beer.
It's a responsible thing to do.
It's a responsible thing to do, and so to have that background of that incredible food, incredible wine. Did you feel any pressure when you were kind of brought on to do this?
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I grew up in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and I went to school in Knoxville, and I spent some time in Belgium, and I really wanted to do something in our home state. And it's not a concept you can shot very deep. It's kind of like one and done. And the farm was really the place that I felt like was the right anchor for our project, and it worked out in our favor. So yeah, it's a beautiful thing to be able to tell that story of culinary through the prism of beer.
What's the approach when you're going, again, because there's so much spotlight. I feel like there's a spotlight on the farm just for the food, the wine, now the beer. But what's the approach going forward when you guys are thinking about a beer to put forward when you know it's going to kind of be put alongside this fantastic food and this fantastic setting? Is there maybe a brewery philosophy or anything you guys follow?
Yeah, first and foremost is balance. I think finesse. There are a lot of really wonderful beers out there that I love that are not necessarily balanced, and that's okay if you're trying to say one particular thing. We're not trying to say one particular thing. We're trying to be very elegant and balanced. Our beers also tend to be extraordinarily dry. That helps them be comfortable at the table. It helps us to have conversations with chefs. We have a lot of chef partners all over the country. And when we're talking about being on a menu or being on a pairing menu or a tasting menu, our beers tend to speak that language where it's already a comfortable place to start. So I think balance and dryness are kind of something that we talk about all the time.
And it definitely is. And if you guys haven't had the beer chip, we'll start pouring them in a little bit. But yeah, I guess we'll do King of Falling Fruit. That's what we're doing. You're doing King of Falling Fruit?
Sure. King of Falling Fruit and Brett Saison.
So I guess maybe even before the next question, let's talk about King of Falling Fruit a little bit. What is the beer? What inspired the beer? The label's gorgeous. I love the brand. I mean, it's a really great presentation. If you can explain a little bit behind the beer.
Yeah, this beer, I'd like to tell you the backstory of it first if you haven't had it before. Our founder passed away very suddenly last February. He was 39 years old, had 5 children. He was in a skiing accident, and he had this philosophy on life that you need to grab every moment, you need to make every day great, you need to really live your life to the fullest and be present. The way this label started is I got to meet an artist that's from Crossville, Tennessee. His name's Andrew Saftel. Woo! The gigantic city of Crossville on the plateau. But Andy Saftel spends a lot of time in Mexico. He fell in love with some of the indigenous villages and cultures down there, and he wanted to help them find a way to create commerce for themselves. So he started helping them rebuild their old looms, and he started making tapestries with them. And this series of tapestries became called King of Falling Fruit. And the idea and the ethos behind the tapestries was the very same ethos that our founder Sam had of there's fruit falling all the time. We don't need to wait for the epic great moments in life. We need to just reach our hand out and grab those little moments that are happening every single day around us. And so that was the first two things. The third thing was we had a beer that we weren't quite sure what we wanted to do with, so we just diverted it to our wood cellar and we let it sit on wood. And I had a farmer call me that sells produce and fruit to our farm, and she said, I'm in a huge bind. I've got about 1,000 pounds of fruit that's going to go bad. And I said, no, we'll pay full price for it. Just bring it. We'll take it. And we had no idea what we were going to do with it. And it was peaches and plums. So we just put that fruit on that beer. And this beer is a blend of 14-month barrel-aged Saison, fresh Saison, and then that blonde ale with this fruit. So the serendipity of the way this beer came together it's an ode to our founder, Sam Bell.
It's beautiful. I mean, it's a beautiful story. It's a fantastic beer. Is there any 14 months in oak?
14 months in French oak.
Awesome. It's an awesome beer. Everybody have a chance to try it? Okay, cool. So,
and another thing I'd like to say about this beer in particular is if you can find peaches or plums in particular, then you've got a great palate or a great imagination. Like I even have a hard time telling you what's in it. It's a fruited beer, but it's, again, extremely subtle. It takes some time to get to know it. And even in the bottle, this has been in bottle for 8 months. At 4 months, it felt a little clumsy. We just weren't quite sure that it was what we were trying to say. But now I feel like that's the reason we brought it, is because I feel like now it's drinking beautifully.
it is. It's dry. It's effervescent. It's incredibly refreshing, and you get the fruit character in it. So
it's in there.
Yeah, it's in there. The next beer that we're going to try is the Brett Saison. I love that beer.
Thank you.
Yeah. What brought you guys into the Brett Saison? Because you guys originally started with clean fermented Saison.
Yeah, everything was sacred. Everything was clean for the first year and a half. Well, as far as releases go, we had beer that was on wood from day one.
Okay.
When we started our wood cellar, we've benefited from all these incredible wine relationships of people that we've sold their wine for 40 years. John Albin is the founder of Rhone Varietals in California. He planted the first Rhone Varietals in the late 60s, early 70s. And he hosts an event at our farm every year called Hospice du Rhone, and it's a celebration of Rhone Varietals. And John had never shared his barrels with anyone because he just didn't see the point. He didn't really understand why anyone would do anything like that. And we began to talk to him about our barrel program and what we wanted to say, and we wanted him to be our first producer that we featured his barrels. So we purchased 50 of his French limousine oak barrels, and they were all Syrah, Mourvedre, and Grenache. And we just put our classic Saison in there because at the time that's really all we made. In 2015, we only had 4 releases from the brewery all year. And Classic is the only beer to this day that we still make year-round. So that's the foundation beer for a lot of our barrel projects. And that beer is a blend of all 3 of those different barrels, all of it 14 months. And it was the first release from our barrel room last year.
It's a beautiful example of what you were talking about. What you're trying to achieve is just balance. Nothing speaks louder than another thing in the beer. It's all just a really gorgeous beer. So if you haven't had it, please, that beautiful gentleman over there with the dreadlocks, Chris Johnson, has some bottles of it.
Thanks, Chris.
Look at how gorgeous he is. Look at that. Look at the dance.
He can dance, too.
I think he's hearing Drake in his head right now.
and
On a Tuesday.
so grab some of that if you can. It's just a really gorgeous balanced beer. It's award-winning.
Yeah, it was humbling to say the least. The very first beer to ever come out of our cellar, and it won silver at GABF last year. So
That's
yeah, we'll take it. We'll take it.
now, so it adds also to the awards of the actual Blackberry Farm to begin with. I mean, these beers are great food beers. Do you purposely approach a beer and say, I need this to go really well at the table?
Absolutely. We have this almost utopian society of artisans at our farm. We have cheesemakers and foragers and butchers and preservationists and gardeners and somms and chefs and we talk every day. So a lot of what we talk about is flavor. All those conversations come back to flavor. And everyone's purpose is to bring out a certain characteristic of flavor. And that's kind of how we start thinking about, wow, what could we do with this grain? What could we do with this herb? What could we do with this botanical? What could we do with something that's growing in the garden? And that becomes the genesis of how we think about making beer.
So we recently started seeing Blackberry Farms more in Florida.
We've been here for almost a year. It's about a year.
And now we're seeing it more often. Is there other states that you guys are going to be thinking about going to soon? Can you talk about that at all? Or
Yeah, we have a really bizarre distribution model. We're in 36 states, but there are some states where we're only in one restaurant. So to say we're shallow is well, I don't think we're shallow as people, but as a distribution strategy, we cast a very wide net and we go very shallow. We don't have a lot of beer. A full batch of beer for us is 40 barrels. By the time we rack off the yeast and do our 28-day fermentation, we might get 400 cases. So to distribute 400 cases in 36 states is kind of ridiculous. There are states that get more than others just based on people that have been friends of the farm for a long time. So it's not a pay to play or you get more because you're spending more or you support our program. It's more about where are our chef friends and where are our customers that care about our program, because we don't have a whole lot of beer. We're correcting that. We're making more beer. The pinch point for us is bottle conditioning. We bottle condition everything 100%. So for 6 weeks, we're sitting on that beer after a month of fermentation. So we're 3 months in from the day that beer was originated. And that's a difficult way to – it's a ridiculous economic model. If you want to open a brewery, don't do that.
certainly not a 2-week turnaround IPA. Yeah.
It will hurt your pocketbook, I promise.
So why the decision to go? I mean, I guess you've got these really beautiful, clean fermented saisons. Why the decision to go with Brett? Why the decision to go with oak? Why the decision to add that extra headache?
Well, from day one, we wanted to tell kind of 3 stories. We have an infatuation with Belgium, just like a lot of people here probably do. And if you spend time in Belgium, you see this diversity and this uncharacteristic willingness to not obey rules. And we felt like making a clean Wallonian, Southern, like DuPont riff in East Tennessee was a great way to start, to tell people this is what we care about. This is a beer that we admire. We're not saying we're better, different. We're just saying this is our interpretation. But that's a good foundation. But that's just where it begins. If you spend time in Belgium and you go around to drink all the beautiful cafe beers and all the monastery beers and Abbey and Trappist beers, and go down to Roselar and drink some of the sours, and go to Cantillon and drink some of the lambic, like you have this experience that just, for me, it taught me that you don't have to be one thing. It's nice to give people a perspective of where it started, maybe where your roots are, but exploration for me and curiosity is why I love this industry. And that gives us the chance to explore, and that was the intent from day one. We never wanted to be just a Sacro Saison brewer.
Any kind of before we go to questions, because there's apparently a lot of people who want to ask questions, is there any kind of vision for the future of anything different, anything you want to see happen at Blackberry Farms in the next few years?
We're grateful for what's happened so far. People do care about what we're doing. We weren't sure if they would or not. when you have a 40-year business that's got all this beautiful story, we weren't sure if people would care or not. So I think we're flattered that people care. We're doing more collaborations now than we ever have because we just didn't have the capacity. So I'm excited about being able to share our space with friends and go visit friends and brew together. I think that's one of the great attributes of our industry is people's willingness to share with each other and to share with you guys. All of our whimsies and ideas, and they don't all work, but that's okay. The process is let's explore together, and that's what makes the industry fun. How many times do you get a prism into the creative minds of people driving an industry? I just think this is it's a cool event. It's a cool way. This is a cool event, being able to sit here and talk to you and field questions, and it's beautifully transparent. So that's what I'm excited about, just being able to work with people more.
Awesome. I think this is the point in time where we got to take questions. Anybody have questions? Come on up, and then I'll pour some of the King of Falling Fruit for anybody who didn't get to try it.
Speaking of collaborations, I was curious about your process behind collaborations, how you go about making the relationship, what you decide to make, or have all the processes been similar? Like, who do you look for in a partner, and then what do you look to make?
That's a really great question. Does everybody know Brandon Jones? We're doing a collaboration with him in 2 weeks, so we're clearly not that discerning on who we'll work with. We're total whores. Now, we've had chefs coming to our farm for a long time, and the way those relationships start are all unique and different. And for the brewery world, I think it's the same. It's sitting around a table, striking an idea. It's tasting somebody's beer and being completely enamored. It's having those people that are pioneering that help you find your way. Everything that we've done so far has been rooted in there's never, I think it's disingenuous to say we want to work with you because it will benefit either one of us. That's bullshit to me. You work with people because the spirit of collaborating is about learning something new together and pushing a boundary. It's also about just being able to spend time together. I get to spend a lot of time with chefs, and the biggest thing that chefs tell me is I never get to cook with my friends because I'm always in the kitchen. I'm always focused on my project. I'm always so dedicated to what I'm doing. It's cool to be able to spend a few days with someone that you care about and talk about your family and talk about your fears and talk about taking trips together, and that's where it starts. So it's really just about friendships.
I got a piggyback question on the collaborations thing. I mean, when you're approaching a collaboration from maybe a style perspective or a technical perspective, how do you balance bringing what maybe your philosophy on beer making is and then the other person's philosophy on beer making?
Yeah, that's new for us. We've only done 2 collaborations thus far. So it's just about talking and saying, what do you want to say? And where are you coming from? For us, it's pretty clear what we've done thus far. But I love the beer that we're going to do with Brandon and Embrace the Funk Yazoo is a whimsical, completely bizarre pale ale that's going to be filled with all sorts of bizarre aspects in its orchestration. That's fun for us. It's a sandbox we don't get to play in that often. If we release that beer under our own umbrella, it would be really weird. And that's part of what makes it fun is bring what you do and let's push our boundaries and learn a little bit more about what's inspiring you. When I go out and drink beers casually with my friends, I don't drink our beer all the time. That'd be so boring. I drink a lot of beer that we don't make. So wouldn't it be fun to make that in our brewery and use some of our processes, maybe use our yeast strain, use our environment to explore a new style or a new country or a new region or a new producer? That's the whole jam for me is let's have fun together. It should be fun.
Anybody, I got another question too. So you
Yeah.
mentioned all your beers are bottle conditioned.
Yes.
So if maybe you can explain why you feel it's so important to bottle condition your beers. What do you get out of it versus just forced carbing and bottling?
Well, when we began our program, we decided that we wanted to pay homage to the old world, whatever that means. A lot of our wines in our cellar come from old world producers, and we spent, I say we, 3 of us that are core to our program spent a lot of time in Belgium, and we just decided that we wanted to try to do something that was maybe difficult and not as mainstream, because our farm, the cadence of our farm and the narrative of our farm is very slow, and we thought bottle conditioning spoke to this natural ethos of agriculture. And I also happen to love what it produces. That secondary fermentation in the vessel is so interesting. And we have a lot of people that come to our farm that have wine cellars, so that we would get asked the question of, can I lay beer down? Well, absolutely. If it's bottle conditioned, let's lay it down. Let's drink a bottle at 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, 24 months. It's going to be different. We're not saying it's better. We're saying it's different. And that, to me, is the education of seeing how beer can play in the same space as wine.
Sure. Yeah, I completely agree with that. I can appreciate bottle conditioning of beers for that specific reason itself. It adds another layer of complexity on top of the beer itself.
For sure.
Anybody have any questions? You guys are missing out on a great opportunity.
We have another question. I'm getting bombarded.
I think he may have been. Ladies first.
Thank you. Okay, so I've had your fall saison. Is it
Fall?
listening? Oh, there he is.
Yeah.
Mike's close enough there, Tiger. All right, so I've had your fall saison. So I know you bottle conditioned because I opened it much later, and it was kind of crazy. But so with your fall saison and all your saisons that you say summer saison, fall saison, in terms of like how you decide whether or not we should like open those now or open those later. I mean, I know they're bottle.
Do both.
Oh,
Buy 2.
Bye.
At least.
Because we get you in.
I've got 2 kids.
Oh,
They need
college.
shoes.
They need shoes.
Buy a case.
But like, I mean, I've had it and I sat on it for like 6 months and it changed, obviously. And it was, so I'm just kind of curious, like what you decide what's going to be your fall saison, your summer saison. I assume there's a spring, maybe not.
The question was, how do we decide what's going to be each saison and how we're going to like create those flavors? The orchestration of the recipe is all completely driven by what's happening in the seasons. Our farm is almost perfectly divided between all 4 seasons. We get about 2.5 to 3 months in each season. So as the leaves are changing, as things are starting to bloom, as things are coming in the garden, we think about color, we think about flavor, we think about what's on the menu, what's being composed by our chefs, and that drives a lot of the flavors. Fall saison in particular incorporated rye. It incorporated chocolate rye and also an indigenous rye from North Carolina from Riverbend Malting. And yeah, great people. Anybody that knows them. And that was a chance for us to tell a story about a grain that's got a beautiful history in the South, not indigenous to the South, but got a great history in whiskey making and beer making. And it brings a cool character to what our Saison yeast strain does. Our Saison yeast strain, if we let it free rise, which to get a little dorky for all the brewers out there, we do free rise fermentation. So we start around 64, we let it go all the way up to 90, if it'll go there. Sometimes it doesn't. But when it gets up into those upper stratospheres of 85 to 90, the pepper and spice characteristics start to really come out, and it plays off of that rye. And in fall, that's what we were going for. I don't know if we achieved it, but that's what we were going for.
All right, so one more question. Selfishly, you don't bottle like champagne yeast. So if I use your drag, can I use your drag? What? I would email him. I swear to God. So your drags are like completely your drags.
We don't
and not
repitch.
champagne yeast. You don't repitch.
We don't do any fining, any filtration, any clarification, we bottle condition with our primary fermenter.
So steal away is what you're saying.
Yeah, steal away. Enjoy. And call the brewery. Seriously, we'll help you in any way we can.
Thank you. So you're very passionate about being on a farm, your ties to the land around you. As we are evolving as a craft beer society here in the States, taking inspiration from other areas, such as the Belgian farmhouse ales, how do you feel being actually on a farm, brewing farmhouse ales, the identity it provides you, and the use of saison, farmhouse ale, rustic ale, all these terms that can get associated and tied back to traditional Belgian styles and what that means for the identity of your brewery and for American craft brewing as it is evolving based on the inspiration of its historical past?
It's a very thoughtful question and a great question. I feel very fortunate that we're where we are. No one can ever take that away from us. We can come show you this place that will completely take your breath away, and we're making beer there. We've harvested 13 unique yeast strains from that farm. We've banked them so we can use those forever. However, for me personally, and I think our entire brewing team, farmhouse brewing is a philosophy. It's a mindset. I think some of the most incredible beers are coming out of breweries that are in complete concrete gridlock, and that's okay. It's more about the ethos of how you approach the craft, what ingredients you're using, fermentation schedules, conditioning, packaging, how you share those products, and in what way you recommend you share those products. So it's more about a philosophy for me. I don't hook us so tightly to the farm that I say we're doing this perfectly. We just happen to be on a beautiful farm, and it's easy for us to go introduce you to gardeners and chefs and artisans and foragers, and it becomes this visceral, contextual thing. Like context, I was talking to Kyle Morgan, who's here from our brewery as well. We were talking about context earlier, and I would challenge anyone that says context doesn't matter. You can drink the same product in two different settings with two different groups of people and two different mindsets and two different times of the day, and it'll taste wildly different. And I think context matters as well. So it's more about just digging into what matters to you and deciding what you care about. And if you care about farmhouse brewing, you care about farmhouse ales, go out there and explore a lot of the people that are digging into it. And there's a lot of really wonderful products being made all over the world, primarily I think in the U.S. right now.
Another question.
First of all, thanks for coming out.
Thank you for coming out.
Perhaps it's just the context, but something about your saisons with Brettanomyces are so highly aromatic. I hesitate to use the word clean, but I don't get a lot of the animal sweat, some of the more unpleasant characteristics.
We drain that out.
I'm wondering, if you could shed some light, what might it be that is giving such a highly aromatic profile and all of, the good things about Brett that are shining through here in your beer?
You win the award for trumping me. We have a very competent brewmaster and brewery team. Daniel's not here. I fully understand it, and I've spent a lot of my career brewing as well, but I don't understand some of the Brett strains as well as he does. He was instrumental in founding the wood program at New Holland Brewing Company in Michigan. So his touch with the Brett strains that we use is very elegant, and he knows what we're going for. And I think they are very delicate. I couldn't tell you exactly how he's achieving that.
Well, it's great, dude.
Thank you.
I will tell you, the brewery is fantastic at responding to their consumers and their fans.
We'll answer any question you have. I mean that. I promise. We want to engage with any of you that want to engage with us.
Yeah, so reach out. I mean, they're amazing at that. So,
Yep. Have fun.
hey, thank you guys very much. Big round of applause. Roy, Blackberry Farms Brewery, and I think there's may still be some of their beer on, and there's a couple bottles left, so enjoy.